Hey there, and welcome to Story Demon. I am David C. Hoke. We are here to talk about how you write a story, how you make a story, how you create a story, how you craft a story. Whether that be for screen, book, or video game, or whatever you're making, you make a story for, you have certain universal elements that you should attack, and I'm here to help you attack them. So today is dread. This is the most underused element I see today, particularly in movies. The unwillingness to establish a sense of dread in the audience undermines so many stories. I can't even get my mind around it. The great ones build up dread. And dread is basically the fear of something that's to come. Apprehension, you fear something, you're apprehensive of it. You don't want it to come. You have a knot in your stomach. You dread going to the dentist. The idea of going to the dentist makes you hurt. It makes you fearful. Dread. You did something wrong, and the boss is going to chew your ass out. You have dread going into work that day, or your mom or dad finding out you did something. You dread when they find out, and their punishment you're going to get. Dread. Great movies, great stories, great video games build up a sense of dread. Example, Kill Bill Volume 1 versus Volume 2. I love Quentin Tarantino. I'm a fan. In no way, shape, or form would I ever presume to know more about story crafting than him, because he's definitely a modern master. But I do feel that this is a great example of dread. Kill Bill Volume 1 builds up such a tremendous amount of dread for her going in, the bride going in and fighting against Oren and the Crazy 88 on her turf. It's built up so well with the anime showing her origin and then becoming an assassin, and to decapitating the guy at the Yakuza board meeting. It's just built up so much. He adds so many layers to add the enormity of the situation that the bride is facing. And there's one of my favorite stretch of filmmaking that Tarantino has done is from when the classic song starts. You know what I mean? She's on the motorcycle, and you have that slow-mo right stuff. Reservoir Dogs walk into the hall with Oren and her people, and then on through when we follow one tracking shot with Uma going to the bathroom, hiding and things like that. All this build up before the first confrontation of her yelling her name and Oren comes out. It's like so well done. The shots, the music, and then before that, all the groundwork was done with the anime and the origin and the Yakuza thing. That was all done so well. So by the time you get to that confrontation, you are on fucking pins and needles. You are on high alert. It's just, oh my God, you're fearful of her not making out of this, even though she's a star and she's going to be the win, blah blah blah. But we've made the Crazy 88 and Oren into Godzilla, and she's just David versus Goliath. And so when that time comes for that battle to take place, you are so keyed up, and then of course it unfolds, and we have the big fight, and it's a big huge payoff, and it's a great stretch of scene. That whole stretch of the movie with her versus Crazy 88 is the build up, and the payoff is just phenomenal. It's to me, it's my favorite Tarantino movie, and particularly because of that stretch of the film. Volume 2, on the other hand, I like it, but it's not that I don't like it. I like it, and I'm not critical of it. I just think it points. I think it just makes my point for me very well. So he's built up over the course of 2 movies this dread of Bill, and Bill is the ultimate badass, and he's so badass he trained the bride, and of course the bride went to his master, and she was trained by him, and so the fact that she's about to take on Bill in the final battle, the boss battle, it's been built up, and then it sort of undercuts itself, and I remember the first time I watched it, the first time in theater watching it, when they're sitting there talking, they're talking, and she does the death thing where she taps it, and he just stands up, walks off, and dies. I remember looking at, I think me and my brother went to saw it. I remember looking at him and I was like, is that really it? And like the credits roll, and we're like, that's really it? That's it? I'm sure there was this point. I'm sure you guys in comment and say, yo, the point, dumbass. I get all that, but it just wasn't satisfying as a viewer because I was building up dread of her confrontation with Bill, and it just didn't pay off to me. I like the movie, and I like it more as time goes on. And again, you're probably going to blast me in the comments. Oh, you dumbass. I get what he did. I get it. People need to understand. Getting it and not liking it, you can always get something and still not like it. Just because somebody doesn't like something doesn't mean they don't get it. I got it. I just didn't care for that approach. The approach of Volume 1 was so much better. And because of dread. The build-up of dread and payoff, and then a build-up of dread and no payoff. And then also you have no build-up of dread, and there's no emotional connection to it. And you feel nothing what's going on. And I think the Michael Bay Transformers movies are a great example of that. The final battles are, all the action scenes in those movies are clusterfucks, but the ending battles to the Transformers movies are always clusterfucks. You can't tell what's going on. There's been no emotional buildup whatsoever. You don't dread the Decepticon. You don't dread Megatron. You just watching this ride. It's like taking a damn roller coaster ride, but you have no emotional investment. There's no sense of dread. There's no stakes. Dread builds up the stakes. So you're just watching this shit show of explosions and metal. There's no cohesion to it whatsoever. And if you had dread, the stylisticness of it, you could tolerate more if dread was built up. If I feared the Decepticons, nothing to fear. There's no emotional buildup of that. It's just there's nothing, no skill was put into. I can't even define the movie, the Michael Bay movie version of Megatron. I have no fucking clue who he is. Like you say, hey, you're at a character sketch of the bio of the. I can tell you some facts about him. I have no clue about him and what he wants or anything else. There's no goddamn development of that. And if you simply develop the dread, usually that involves the other things coming along with it. The Empire in the first, I always go back to the first Star Wars because it's such a classic example, and so many of our modern ways of storytelling are sort of like spring from it. And of course, it borrowed from others, and I understand things that led to it. But it's kind of the pivot point in filmmaking in a lot of sense. One of the pivot points in filmmaking in a lot of sense. And you dread the Empire. They blew up a planet. They keep winning. They even allow the Falcon to escape as part of their strategy. So they never are beaten, really, until we get to the last battle. So we've seen them blow up a fucking planet. They blew up Alderaan. And when they're coming in on Yavin at the end for that battle, when it's the clock's ticking for a lot, you're like, oh shit, that whole planet is pretty much fucked. They've got to their moon base is fucked. The rebels are fucked. Oh shit, are we going to get out of this? Raiders of the Lost Ark. The dread built up by the Nazis and the Ark itself. It's such a powerful tool. It was a tool of God. There's such a quest to find it, all these pitfalls and struggles to get to it. And then when it's opened up, you're kind of uncertain. You're kind of in knots to like what's going to happen when the Ark is opened up. And then he's like, don't look at it. And then you have this big payoff. And all that is because of the dread. So when you build dread, you have to build other important parts of your story to accompany it. That's why it's so crucial to build dread. Most of your straight to DVD type movies, they lack these type of sets because it takes time and skill and effort when all this means money to do. So you have to be creative in ways to build it up. And it's that extra layer, like we talked about with the sidekick and the window, the conduit into stories. Building up dread is another layer. It's a little bit of extra salt. When you're making a recipe, it's a little bit of a different spice you put in there to make your dish to another level. Building up dread takes your story from here to here, because it involves character development. It involves structuring your scene, structuring your story. It involves a development of the bad guy. It involves putting your good guy through the ringer. If you focus on dread, a lot of these things will accompany it and make it that much better. I go back to movies that I like and that I grew up with, and what I'm talking about here, there are modern examples. Sure, I mean Thanos is a great villain for the Avengers because he's so tough and he's hard to beat and he kicks their ass, and then he even wins in the end of Infinity Wars. I mean, at the end game, Jesus Christ. Can we beat this guy? He's insurmountable. All these heroes' efforts combined, he waved them off. So this buildup of Thanos being the ultimate badass, pays off, and because they did so, like those are the two. That's kind of the epic. That's the pinnacle of the Marvel movies. They've died off since. Why? There's no central villain. They don't get their ass kicked really. I mean, the movies that are good within the post Endgame movies usually have that challenge. I mean, the last Spider-Man movie was great because it was such a challenge. And you were like, how's he going to undo this mess he's made? But a lot of it lacks this dread and lacks the clear villains and things like that. So when you focus on building up dread, building up tension, it's going to force you into all these things. So that means when you're writing, when you're developing it, what can you add to it? What is the bad guy's bad and he has this clear purpose. So, but what's his tool to do that? What's her tool to do that? What is this universe like that you're in? Is there something that can contribute to the dread? And there's degrees of these things. I thought a good little movie that was made in the last few years that didn't get much attention. And it's not perfect. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it's a great movie, but there was a movie called Underwater with Kristen Stewart, and I thought it built up the dread pretty good because you had these monsters attacking. You really didn't know where they were coming from, and then you had the fear of the water, and then the pressure of the water, and you had all these elements building up, and then just dealing with the water pressure alone was a major obstacle. And then you add the monsters on top of it. It was there was a lot of layers added to it. It was a smaller scale movie in terms of it wasn't a Marvel movie, but it wasn't a cheap movie either. It was but it was well done. Not great, but good. It was solid to me. To me, it was solid. And a lot of that was due to the dread that they built up. And doing the dread forced these other things to come along with it. Scorsese makes you feel an emotional dread a lot of times. When Henry and Goodfellas turns, and the wife goes to see De Niro, and he tells her to get some clothes, go in this room to clothes, and she looks down and she sees these shady guys waiting in there. That dread has been built up because that De Niro's character is capable of some horrifying things. And in this world, turning on each other is a very real risk. They turn on each other all the time. You've seen, one of the main characters and the Pesci character get whacked, and unceremoniously whacked. So there's that world built up this emotional dread of what could happen, and the stakes were raised so high that when De Niro's sitting in that room, that room to get the dresses for whatever it was for her, you're like, oh shit, don't go in that room. These guys, it's going to be bad news. And of course, she runs in fear and runs off. So there's many ways to do it. It doesn't have to be a bad guy, and it doesn't have to be like a monster. It doesn't have to be the crazy 88. It can be an emotional dread, facing some sort of a circumstance. Silver Linings Playbook, characters love each other, but it's not being confessed. And you have this third party influence, that creates a sense of doubt. And at the end, she runs off because she can't take it anymore, and he has to run and catch her, and his love is confessed. But you build up this dread that they're going to fuck it up. Emotionally, they're going to fuck it up, and the love will not be conveyed, the love will not be confessed, and it's going to end, and they're not going to be together, and you don't want that to happen. So emotional dread. It's not just monsters. It's not just gunfights and sword fights. It's emotional dread. Dread. Shitty movies, shitty stories don't build up dread. If you don't fear the outcome, if you don't make the stakes high, then you know what I mean? Then you got like that's again, that's why a lot of your beam type movies will fail. Not all, but a lot of them will fail because that hasn't been built up. It takes another. It's that extra little bit in the kitchen that makes it good. So, in crafting your story, what are the stakes? How do these stakes arrive? Why are the stakes there? And how are they going to be resolved? Find that out. If you find it later in your writing, that's fine. I'm not saying you have to start knowing that. It helps if you do, but always be pushing towards it. Keep raising the stakes. I don't care if it's a Hallmark movie. I don't care if it's Avengers Endgame. I don't care if it's a gangster movie. The stakes have to be getting raised all the time. Will they confess their love? What happens if they don't? Will he defeat the monster? What happens if they don't? Will the gangster's wife get away? What happens if she don't? You need to build that up. And then once you do that, you'll have a satisfying conclusion. Even if it doesn't really work out, even if it's a, unhappy ending, you still have to build those stakes and have a payoff, whichever way you go. So have you built a sense of dread in your story? Think about that. If you haven't, go back to the drawing board and do that.